down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Uh-oh. Ha. Wait a minute. What the heck happened there? I'm sorry. I must have hit the... I must have hit my button to make that go off. We'll deal with that here in just a minute. But, hey, welcome everybody to the Independence Day special, Independence Day 2022 special for the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I am your patriot-loving host, Rick. I have a lot to go over tonight. I've got a lot to go over. Wow. I mean, it's funny how a little technical difficulty can discombobulate you a little bit. But I have quite a bit to happen. I mean, this weekend obviously is, if you're an American, probably should be up there as one of the greatest holidays in the entire year. Because realistically, folks, if this holiday didn't exist, and if those people who did not do what they did back in 1776 and subsequent years, this country would not exist here. And, you know, the thing about it is everybody, and I do this a lot, I kind of focus on the Constitution because it is our foundational document that guides us in terms of our country, how our country is run, how politics and the federal government and the state governments and the people are all supposed to interact with one another. So a lot of times, though, we bring up the Declaration of Independence, and believe it or not, a lot of people actually mix and commingle the two between the Declaration and the Constitution in terms of things that are written in the Declaration are not written in the Constitution, and obviously things that are in the Constitution are not written in the Declaration of Independence. And the reason for that is because of the fact that they actually were written, contrary to what some might believe, they actually were written many years apart. We had the Declaration of Independence that was written and signed on the 4th of July in 1776. And we have the Constitution, which was a second run at a government framing document. The first run, of course, was the Articles of Confederation, which fell apart after a few years. And that resulted in the Constitution of the United States. But the reality of it is the setup of our government, the setup of our country, and the idea of everything that we stand for and believe in this country can be traced back to the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence had so many different ideas and thoughts and, you know, principles and those kinds of things to help set up this country to become the greatest country that this earth has ever seen. I have absolutely no doubt about that, bar none. I know we have our troubles, but the Declaration of Independence has some key clues in certain areas to help prove that the people who wrote it were forward-thinking individuals, far enough so that they believed that certain atrocities such as slavery and making everyone equal was a huge, important part in the formation of this country, unlike what the 1619 Project has tried to put out, unlike what the CRT folks have tried to create and say that this country was founded in racism and founded in all kinds of things that just aren't true. That may have been at the time, and there may have been people there at the time who have focused on that. But the fact of the matter is that if you listen to what is in the Declaration of Independence, you'll see the forward thinking of the founding fathers of this country and what they saw It was the gate, door, storage door, garage door, the opening for the country that we have today, the freedoms that we have, and the ability to do things like abolish slavery, allow women the right to vote. All of those things were set up based off of the Declaration of Independence and the framers, the people who have put this country together and put us on essentially the right path. We should be celebrating every single Independence Day. Now, Independence Day occurs on the 4th of July, just like with Christmas. I do not say happy holidays to people. I say Merry Christmas because of the fact that the actual holiday is Independence Day. It is not the 4th of July. It is Independence Day. And we have had so much secularism brought into this country that they are pushing us and saying to us, oh no, celebrate the 4th of July. It is not the 4th of July, folks. It was Independence Day. It was the day when a group of people got together and all with one voice said, we want our independence. We want to be the country of America, not some colony from England. We want to be the country of America. And I'm going to go through a bunch of things today on that note. I am not going to do the spot on the Institute on the Constitution. I just am not going to do it. I just have too much stuff going on. But what I am going to do is, and I have to back up in order to do this. So what I am going to do is go to on this day in American history. And yes, that did light off to start the show. I got overly excited and hit the button to let it go. I am not going to do July 2nd, which is today's date. I actually want to talk about our July 4th, Independence Day, the day the Declaration of Independence was signed. Let's go. On July 4th, 1776, delegates to the Continental Congress in Philadelphia voted to adopt the Declaration of Independence. The men who issued that famous document realized they were signing their own death warrants, since the British would consider them traitors. Many suffered hardship during the Revolutionary War. William Floyd of New York saw the British use his home for a barracks. His family fled to Connecticut, where they lived as refugees. After the war, Floyd found his field stripped and house damaged. Richard Stockton of New Jersey was dragged from his bed, thrown into prison, and treated like a common criminal. His home was looted and his fortune badly impaired. He was released in 1777, but his health was broken and he died a few years later. At age 63, John Hart, another New Jersey signer, hid in the woods during December of 1776 when Hessian soldiers hunted him across the countryside. He died before the war's end. The New Jersey Gazette reported that he continued to the day he was seized with his last illness to discharge the duties of a faithful and upright patriot in the service of his country. Thomas Nelson, a Virginian, commanded the militia and served as governor during the Revolution. He reportedly instructed artillerymen to fire at his own house in Yorktown when he heard the British were using it as a headquarters. Nelson used his personal credit to raise money for the Patriot cause. His sacrifices left him in financial distress, and he was unable to repair his Yorktown home after the war. Thomas Hayward, Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge, 3 South Carolina signers, served in their state's militia and were captured when the British seized Charleston. They spent a year in a St. Augustine prison, and when released, found that their estates were plundered. Such were the prices paid so that we may celebrate freedom every 4th of July, and I mean every Independence Day, which happens to fall on the 4th of July. And that, of course, comes from the American Patriots Almanac, one of the best books out there to grab little snippets of our history and understand its context. Oh my gosh, people. I don't think anybody really and truly understands the sacrifices that these people made. I honestly don't. I don't believe that we have an understanding of the magnanimous decision that was made by these people in their choice to sign the Declaration of Independence and basically tell the King of England, you're out of here, buddy. We want to govern ourselves. Okay. I don't think anybody really truly understands that. I do know that there are many, many people here today who have absolutely no idea what it would take to put your life, your family's lives, and everything on the line in chasing an ideal such as liberty and freedom. I really don't think that they know. And one of those things, if you happen to look, I have no idea where this came from, to be honest with you. This is it's a plaque or a headstone or something like that got carved. Let me go ahead and show it to you here. I got to find it first. It's this one. Listen to this. By signing the Declaration of Independence, the 56 Americans pledged their lives and their fortunes and their sacred honor. It was no idle pledge. 9 signers died of wounds during the Revolutionary War. 5 were captured or imprisoned. We just kind of talked about that. Wives and children were killed, jailed, mistreated, or left penniless. 12 signers' houses were burned to the ground. 17 lost everything they owned. Not a single signer defected. Their honor, like their nation, remain intact. That, folks, that is dedication. It is that kind of thing that we need to aspire to. It's that kind of thing that our young people should be learning today. To take an ideal and be willing to risk your life, your liberty, your fortune, and your family for something that may not even be a guarantee. And they did it. They had finally had enough, and they did it. And on July 4th in 1776, they penned their name to the bottom of a letter that was sent to the King of England as a declaration of American independence. This is a great, great holiday. This stacks up, as far as I'm concerned, way up on the list, and should be celebrated as such. Okay. Now, I have a short poem. I think I've read it before, but I have a short poem here I want to read to you. And it's from Julia Ann Moore. It's called The 4th of July. 4th of July. How sweet it sounds that every year it rolls around. It brings active joy to boy and man this glorious day throughout our land. We hail this day with joy and pride and speak of our forefathers who died, who fought for liberty in days of yore and drove the British from our shore. We, as descendants of that race, should not now our land disgrace. Arise, freemen, arise once more. Be earnest as in the days of yore. And that poem is titled 4th of July by Julia Ann Moore. Got to get that right. But you know, folks, we are in a culture war right now. And granted, the last couple of weeks, and I just spotted this in the chat. So Redford, here you go. It's the American Patriots Almanac. You can get it on Amazon or any place where the books are sold. It's by William J. Bennett and John T.E. Cribb. Okay. So that should pick that up. All right. So, folks, we are at a crossroads. Right here, right now, we are at a crossroads because we have a certain sect of our society that does not seem to understand the enormity of the Declaration of Independence and the meaning of the fact that the Independence Day is here. That these people, these men who risked everything to come over here to the New World, honestly, they risked everything to come over here and they made a life for themselves here. And they all stood up and I don't think anybody can understand what the British Army was back in the day. They were feared by pretty much everybody in the world. If you're thinking of America today as being the superpower of the world for the last, 20, 30 years, okay, this was the English Army and Navy were the superpower of the world back then. And literally, America had no hope of defeating them. They really didn't. They started out on a journey that I would say maybe had a 10% chance, honestly, of winning. But the difference was the resolve. The difference was the pride, the responsibility. It was a resolve of men who wanted to just be free and live in peace. They had had several things thrust upon them by the English that honestly turned into a lot of our 10 amendments to the Constitution. I mean, things like quartering houses. I just read out of the book. There was a guy who had his house seized and was quartering soldiers. There's things like searches and seizures. The British were allowed to walk in and just take anything that they wanted. They didn't have to have a warrant. They could just walk in and say by the king's command or whatever, whatever they said back then. Things like freedom of speech was taken away. There were a lot of papers that were attempted to be silenced in the colonies. These are all things that turned into our first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They were things that, even though the Constitution was written many years after the Revolutionary War, people were still alive who remembered the Revolutionary War and what it was before the war, and how life was literally torn apart by the actions of the English. And this is, just to grasp what would be happening here today, we are, I'm going to say, closer to it than we have been in our 200 and, some odd 40, 50 years since. We are so close right now because we have a tyrannical regime in the White House right now that is trying to take away freedoms and liberties and trying to force feed us a philosophy and an ideology that doesn't in any way, shape, or form fit with the America that was formed back in 1776. I see some more people are joining. That's great. Thank you very much for stopping by. As always, I do appreciate my subscribers. I do appreciate my watchers, and I appreciate everybody that follows me on all of my social media that's showing up right here. Thank you for coming on this Independence Day special. So, one thing that kind of popped up, I don't know if too many people know about them, but it maybe they're fairly well known. I mean, if you run in conservative circles, they are often advertisers on conservative programs. I'm going to go ahead and give them a shout out now because it is a fantastic resource when it comes to things having to deal with America and American values. And so what we have here is Hillsdale College. Hillsdale as in Hillsdale, Hillsdale College. And they have a website at hillsdale.edu. They have a fantastic monthly periodical that comes out. It's a monthly digest of, usually 2 or 3 writings by some very, very staunch conservative people called In Primis. I recommend you pick that up. It is totally free. You can do a donation if you want, but it is totally free. You can have it delivered to your mail, or you can get the digital edition. And one of the things that they do is they put stuff up every Independence Day, kind of about, of course, Independence Day. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about that. I'm going to show this. So let's go over to them real quick. Need to shut that down and bring this up. So the question that they put forth this year is, why do we celebrate Independence Day? And one of the things that they talk about is on July 3rd, 1776, and I'm going to be reading from the website here. On July 3rd, 1776, John Adams wrote to his wife, Abigail, about how succeeding generations should celebrate the Declaration of Independence. Quote, it ought to be solemnized with pomp and parade, with shoes, games, sports, guns, bells, bonfires, and illuminations from one end of this continent to the other, from this time forward forevermore. I am well aware of the toil and blood and treasure that it will cost us to maintain this declaration and support and defend these states. Yet through all the gloom, I can see the rays of ravishing light and glory. I can see that the end is more than worth all the means. That's incredible. I mean, that's basically telling you that these people had such resolve that they were willing to take on anything and everything in order to stand up for their principles and their values, to stand up for liberty, to stand up for independence, to stand up and not take taxation without representation, to not take the abuses that that had been foisted upon them by the English king and his army. Now, Hillsdale's got a bunch of things in here that is available. I put a link in the description. They've got a bunch of wonderful things in here. They've got a short video you can watch if you go to the website. They have, and I honestly, they have a 1776 curriculum right here. The first one on the left. And I've downloaded that and I've looked through it. I haven't done all of it, but, as time permits. Then they have this Great American Story, A Land of Hope. They have an Independence Day quiz, which I thought at first I was thinking of going ahead and doing it while on the show, but I don't want to take away from anybody else, doing it. I can tell you there are 10 questions. I went through it. I got 9 out of 10 correct. I missed one, and I'm a little irritated at that. But what we are going to do is we are going to go through this selected 4th of July readings. We're going to go through that. But I also want to bring up, you can get a free pocket Constitution. As you know, I have multiple copies of Constitutions, including the one that is on my website, the Saddleback leather Constitution. This one here you can get going to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. Once again, that's constitution.whiskeymusings.online. If you missed that, it's in the description of the video, and you can get that and support the show. And then the other thing that they have is they have these 4 phone screen savers. You can use them as wallpaper. You can use them for your lock screen, and it shows some pride in America. So I just wanted to show that to you. and let you know about that. So you can go there. That's at hillsdale.edu. That's hillsdale.edu. EDU is short for education. And you can go there and pick those up. And you can also grab one of what I'm about ready to read through here in just a couple of minutes about the 4th of July readings. Now, before I do that, one of the most proud things I think that anyone can actually do is to show respect and love for our country. And one way that people can do this, especially veterans, is by showing respect and love to our standard, to our flag, to our banner that shows the entire world that this is the place to go for freedom. And I think a lot of people have questions about how a person who is a member of the armed forces, that's easy. Most of the time they're going to be in uniform. And you'll see them salute the flag and that kind of stuff. They have specific things that they can do for the flag. But one of the things that changed back in 2008, and this is actually something that I have gratitude toward the Congress who went and changed this back in 2008. This first one they changed in January, and then the second one they changed a few months later in October because they realized that they had missed it during the January session. But it has to deal with the hoisting, lowering, and passing of the flag, and in specific, it's to veterans. So let me go ahead and bring this up for you here. And the highlighted portion, so this portion here is under U.S. Code 4, it's Title 4, U.S. Code Section 9, and it talks about the conduct of the hoisting and the lowering of the flag. And I'm going to pop this open so you guys can see it a little bit better. But I've highlighted the pertinent part. And basically what they did is they changed it such that veterans who are present, as well as members of the armed forces who are present but not in uniform, can render the military salute. I do this every day with my flag. Whenever it's going up, whenever it's going down, and even when I am passing it on my way to do my chores, both in the morning and at night. And to me, it is a great honor to be able to do this. So if you're out at your Independence Day celebrations on the 4th of July and you're watching a parade and you are a veteran, you are legally allowed to stand up and salute that flag. And I would love to see members of the armed services who are veterans and who are in plain clothes to take advantage of this law. Show the respect, the proper respect for our flag. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's been a lot of conversations on social media where lefties have been talking about the 4th and not celebrating the 4th of July. There are several Democrat-run cities that are foregoing fireworks displays. Some of them are doing it because they don't have enough people. Some of them are doing it because of risk of fire. Some of them are doing it for other various reasons. I'm not saying that they're doing it on purpose necessarily. However, we all know that the left hates America. We all know that the left is looking to destroy America. So I am calling for anyone who watches this program, for anyone who is a member of the armed services and not in uniform, as well as any veteran, stand up and salute that flag when she comes by. Let's show these people that there is a strong force of individuals who are willing to stand up and do what our founding fathers did when they signed that declaration, that they are willing to risk it all for a love of country, a love of freedom, and a love of liberty. Please And honestly, the same thing goes for the national anthem. Because right here, and this, like I said, was the one that got passed in October because they had missed it during the January session. And this is Title 36 U.S. Code 301. And this is for the national anthem. And the highlighted part is the one that's pertinent here. Members of the armed forces and veterans who are present but not in uniform may render a military salute in the manner provided for individuals in uniform. So what they are saying here is at the playing of the national anthem, which when you're in uniform and outside, you were supposed to salute, at least it was back when I was in. But the national anthem, when it plays, all you veterans, take pride, stand up, and show these people the amount of people who actually have the backs of the people in this country who were willing to put their lives on the lines just like our founding fathers were way back in the day, to lose your life for freedom and liberty. All right. Okay, now let me take a step back. I gotta take a moment. Oh, speaking about that, tonight I am drinking from the appropriate America shot glass. Proper number 12. Now, the reason the bottle looks this way is because the bottle is actually green. And as you know, I use a green screen. So that's why when I put it in front of my face doesn't show through because the computer is taking out the green in it and superimposing the flag that I've got for my background. All right. So let's get back to these 4th of July readings. So a couple of years ago, my first Independence Day. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you, buddy. You also reminded me. So Buddy reminds us here that if you were a civilian, you were supposed to stand with your hand over your heart and remove your headwear. Now, I see a lot of people take their headwear and put that over their heart, which is perfectly fine. But the thing about it is that, you know, we should all be respecting the flag, and especially any American, seriously, any American who believes in America, who, you know, is loving of America should render the proper respect for our country and her standard, Old Glory, known as the American flag. Let's show these people really who they're messing with. I mean, seriously. Okay. So getting back to my Declaration of Independence. So a couple years ago, when I first kind of started the program off, one of the things that I did for my very first Independence Day special was to read directly from the Declaration of Independence. And the funny thing is, a lot of people think of 18th century or 17th century English as being kind of like reading Shakespeare. You know, it is, but it isn't. It's kind of a mix, and a mix not of today's English, but a mix of understandable English with a few quirks and strangeness. And being able to go back and read our Declaration of Independence, especially a few key points, can show and demonstrate for anyone who is, you know, halfway intelligent. And by that, I mean my listening audience, because all of you are much more intelligent than I am. But being able to go back and take a look at these documents and understand the mindset of the people who framed our Constitution, who set up this brand new, never before seen in the world constitutional republic, a representative democracy, is just absolutely astounding. You have to have a lot of respect for these people, and especially understanding that they went into writing this declaration, sending it off to the King of England, that they were basically David going after Goliath. They took on the giant of the British Army and the British Navy. They knew they were on the short end of the stick, but they did it anyway because they had the resolve to do it correctly. So I want to bring some of these up. And this, again, comes from hillsdale.edu. You can go and take a look and find it there. So from the Declaration of Independence, and I'm going to read this because I do have an audio portion of the program running right now. When, in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Basically, what they're saying by that first paragraph is because of the fact that we have a separation between man and God and nature, we need to be able to declare or say why we want to separate from this current government. That's essentially what they're saying there. So this next paragraph, and this is where it really gets into the meat. Think about what our country was founded on as I read this out. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles, and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now, looking at that, how can you sit here and say, just by that paragraph, how do you have the audacity to say that our government was steeped in slavery, steeped in racism, steeped in anything but liberty and happiness and individual freedom? This is what they were striving for. This is where they were saying that we want to go forth and build this nation. And they held certain beliefs, one of which is that our beliefs are coming from a creator. So how can anyone read that and not understand that America is a Judeo-Christian founded country is beyond me? That our creator gave us certain unalienable rights. Among them are life, hello, abortion laws, liberty, hello, freedom from tyranny and oppression from a government, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, a lot of people talk about this as, oh, well, you know what, we're, LGBTQ or whoever. I'm telling you, any conservative, any strict constitutionalist, any American-loving patriot looks at this and understands that this basically means live and let live. You do your thing, I do mine. As long as the two of us don't cross over one another, we are perfectly fine. As long as you do it within the boundaries of the overarching law, which is the Constitution of the United States at this point. Now listen to this next part. That to secure these rights, to secure the rights of life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, governments are instituted among men. So the purpose of the government is to make sure that your rights are not trampled on. This is not what is happening today. And that this government is deriving their power. They get their power from the consent of the people. So how can you sit here and say that a government has the power over the people? They don't. The people have the power over the government. The government can only do what the people allow it to do. And unfortunately, for the last 80 years, we've been allowing the government to do a heck of a lot that it is not meant to do. Now, question is asked, why can we not do that now? Well, I'll be honest with you. I think that it is possible for it to happen, but it would require, again, a lot of bloodshed. And I don't think that anybody is really ready to just scrap everything and start over again. Well, let me put it this way. Anybody who is an American is and who believes in America and her principles and her values is not quite ready to do that again or to scrap it and start back over, which is essentially what they're saying here. But I do know that the left wants to scrap and destroy everything that is here. And we need to hold fast on that. All right, let me continue here. So, I'm going to skip this first paragraph here because it kind of talks about the long train of abuses and so on and so forth that the English did to us. But, and to throw off the English, this is basically them saying, hey, we're declaring our independence. But this is important right here, this next paragraph, and it's a fairly long one. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress, assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they will have the power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Now, they're basically saying in that paragraph, they essentially are saying that we as a people, as in one voice, stand up and throw off the chains of servitude to the British Crown at the time. And they also outline, you'll notice in the declaration here, they outline what the Constitution of the United States, some of the things that the Constitution is written such that the federal government is allowed to do, such as levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce. This was the start of the framework that moved into the Articles of Confederation and then ultimately moved into the U.S. Constitution as it stands today. Now, you also notice that they bring in, again, two other phrases that deal with a belief in a supreme being or divine power. They say, quote, supreme judge of the world, which is God, and protection of divine providence, once again, God. So for all of those people who sit here and say that America was not founded in Judeo-Christian values, just read what they were writing at the time. This tells you what was going on in their minds in 1776. Now, there was a speech by Abraham Lincoln. He gave it in Chicago on July 10th, 1858. Now, Abraham Lincoln wrote some spectacular documents. Of course, the Gettysburg Address is his most well-known. I would say, but he wrote and is quoted. He was a very, very wise man. He started off, his career as a lawyer initially. But I'm going to leave this to you so you can go to hillsdale.edu and download this 4th of July patriotic readings, and you can read this. I have a couple of speeches here that I think that we really need to listen to. And I always look toward people who have the eloquence, that have the ability to put complex thoughts into words, and are able to present themselves in such a way as to take things that are kind of pie in the sky type of things and bring them down to earth. And one such individual I have a great respect for. He was president of the United States from roughly 1980 to 1989, or 88, I think. And his nickname was called the Great Communicator. I want to bring that video to you, and I want you to listen to it. It's about 4 minutes long, but I really think that it's important for all of us to listen to his words. And he gave it in January of 81. Let me find it here. Where did it go? Where did I put it? Did I stick it up here? No. Sorry, I lost it. Oh, here we go. I want you to take a listen to it. And this, of course, is the great communicator, Ronald Reagan.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small-town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
That's right. We are Americans. That's an incredible speech by an incredible man. And, a lot of people took umbrage to the fact that he used to be an actor. But I've watched him, well, at least looked in history. I actually wrote to him when I was in elementary school. He had a habit of writing people back, and unfortunately, I think I've told this story before, but when I was in elementary school, we all wrote to him, and unfortunately, he did not write a handwritten letter back, but he is very well known for having done that in the past. But he got back a form letter, and I enjoyed it so much that I actually framed it. In fact, I don't know this for certain, but I think I still have that framed letter somewhere. But it was a form letter. It was, the automatic pen signing or whatever. He was a great man, and he was instrumental in doing a lot of great things. And anyone who follows his life and his legacy can take a look at many of the good things that he did in his life. And again, one of his great things that he was able to do was he was a fantastic orator. Even before he became president, before he became the governor of California, and even when he became governor of California, he had a lot of what I would call the old guard of Republican values and Americanism in his speeches, in his interactions with the public. And he was also very well known for doing jokes and writing his own jokes. And he would write them and give them in speeches. And that's part of the reason what made him such an entertaining spokesman. I have great respect for that man. And I'm looking forward to reading the book that my wife and kids got for me, regarding his life. I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and read it because I have a feeling it's one of those books that once you start, you're not going to be able to put it down. And so I'm holding it for a little while until I get some actual time to be able to sit down and read it. But he was an incredible man, and a lot of people don't give him enough credit. He also at one time was the oldest sitting president of the United States at 69. We have obviously an older president right now. But that's not the only speech that I have for tonight. There's another speech that I think is also powerful, but it hasn't been done by a politician, but it also has been done by a great American. Now, I don't agree with this individual on everything. In fact, I was listening to his last Friday's podcast of his radio show, and there were a couple things that he discussed about amendments that he had penned and was basically saying that these should be part of the Constitution. I took a little exception to a couple of parts of them. But that being said, even though I disagree with him, he still is a great American. He is a very wise individual. He has kind of followed the footsteps of Rush, but not to the point of being like having Rush as a mentor. But he's followed Rush into the conservative radio space. And I know some people don't care for him, which is fine. But every once in a while, he does come up with some very wise words of wisdom. His voice is a little hard to follow, but the man is got the moniker of the Great One. This is Mark Levin, and he gave a speech on Fox News one time after the release of his book, American Marxism, which I suggest you pick up and read. It is a great book to take a look at. But listen to this speech, because this is an inspiring speech, especially given in today's day and age. Now, the speech was done at about 6 months into the Biden presidency. So there are some dated things in here, but it's still applicable to today. Here he is, the great one, Mark Levin.
I was part of the Reagan Revolution. I was part of the Tea Party movement. I was part of the Trump Revolution. There is a massive movement afoot. It's not under the radar. People just aren't looking at it. The silent majority is not going to be silent anymore. The American people are furious with what's happening to their country. And by American people, I mean all American people who love this country, regardless of their color, their religion, their background. Red-blooded Americans. They are sick and tired of what they've seen in the first 6 months of this administration. They don't like the way they're being treated by the elites in the media. They don't like being looked down upon by these phony professors who they bring on TV who trash them. They are disgusted with the teachers' unions. Parents all over this country can't believe what's happened to elementary schools and secondary schools. Parents go broke to send their kids to college, and now they're coming home on Thanksgiving or other days, and they don't know what's happened to them. We are paying for our own demise with tenured Marxist professors and administrators for schools that are turning on our founding and our history. Americans love their history. Americans love their history, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Americans are sent all over the world to fight wars for people who do not look like them. America's borders are wide open. We have a president of the United States who is violating our immigration laws, who signs executive orders like he's Benito Mussolini. We're sick and tired of hearing from San Francisco Nancy Pelosi and New York City Chuck Schumer what they intend to do to our court system. Those courts belong to us. Attacking separation of powers and our constitutional construct. We're tired of the way the family is trashed in this country, the family. We're tired of the way private property rights are treated in this country. We're tired of a lot of things going on in this country. Now we, the people, we are peaceful. You won't find us running around with Molotov cocktails. You won't find us attacking cops. We defend the cops. You won't find us burning cities and so forth and so on. We're not mostly peaceful. We're 100% peaceful. But we are pissed off, and we have had enough, and we're done talking about it. The idea that a book like this sells 400,000 copies in 1 week and is well on the way to 500,000, I've been in these movements before. I saw what happened with liberty and tyranny in the Tea Party movement. We know our history. We are a great people, and we have people in this country who haven't contributed a damn thing to it, and not a damn thing to it. Trying to tear it down and redistribute wealth. They sound like they're soapbox Marxists going on and on about we don't provide this, we don't provide that, and Bernie Sanders is going to provide it, and AOC is going to provide it. They don't know a damn thing about this country. They use the benefits of capitalism to attack capitalism. They use liberty to attack liberty. They use the Constitution to attack the Constitution. I've been around a long time. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit still for this. And they don't understand the American people. The American people are not going to roll over and play dead. The American people are going to speak out. And let me tell you what's going to happen in 2022 with the Manchin types and the others who pretend to be moderates, who play footsies with these American Marxists. You're going to get blown out. In fact, every damn one of you is going to get blown out. So kiss your career goodbye. You may have power now. You may be trying to force your will on the American people now, but it will not last. That's what's going on in this country. I feel it and I know it. That's all I have to say.
That is inspiring. I play that every once in a while just to myself because he puts it so succinctly in terms of what's happening. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to start declaring our independence from these ideologues that are out there. And we need to stand up and be able to understand this is not the America that I wanted to pass on to my kids. This is not the America, not only that I grew up in, and I'm pretty young for for most of these standards, but this is not the America that I wanted to be a part of. This that we have been moving toward is not what America is. There's a great piece in the Epoch Times. I've linked it down below, and it talks about the court cases that have come out. Now, the left has gone nuts over these court cases because for roughly 70 years, the Supreme Court has been a bludgeon that the left has been using to beat up Americans and to take down the Constitution and the fence that the Constitution is supposed to provide. And this piece in the Epoch Times, I've linked it in the description of the video. Please go and grab it. Please go and read it. It is a absolute fantastic written account of what the Supreme Court is actually targeting. And it was written after the EPA decision came out on Thursday. And this person who wrote this piece is just, they hit the nail on the head. The thing about the Supreme Court over the course of the last week has not been what the left wants everybody to believe, meaning that they want to take away women's rights, that they want to take away gun protections, that they want to take away all these, the power of the government to enact climate change, that they want to take away the power of the government to do all of these things. In essence, yes, they do want the power of the government to go away, but they want it to go back to where the Constitution has its limits. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, and I'll continue to say it. To me, the 10th Amendment is the most underused and possibly one of the most powerful amendments to the Constitution. It came in number 10 in the list of grievances that the people who added the amendments to the Constitution did. But it is very, very strong. It's very simple and it's very clear in what it says. I love the fact that somebody somewhere back in our past lined up and put that one in there, because it clearly tells the federal government you cannot step outside of the lines that the Constitution has put forth, and that your powers to govern are limited, and that the states and the people hold most of the power. The 10th Amendment is the amendment that sets up our federalism. And before I get going off on a tangent here, because we're talking about the Declaration of Independence and the glorious willingness of those men to stand up and fight the Goliath that was England. But this piece, this Epoch Times piece, is a short article. It's like a 5-minute read. It frames exactly what happened over the course of the last week with the Supreme Court. I encourage you to go grab it and read it. Brilliant, just a brilliant article. A brilliant article. All right. So now it is time for, let me see if I can find it here. I don't think it's that. Oh, here it is. Okay. And now it's time for questions for whiskey. All right. So I'm fairly certain that he is not watching, because he did warn me in the email that he probably wouldn't be watching. But This comes in from WGrow508. That's his screen name on Rumble. Hey, Whiskey. I know I already sent in a question, which, by the way, I'm going to use for next week because I think it's very poignant. I put that in there, by the way. I know I already sent in a question, but with this Saturday being your Independence Day show, I thought you might want this one instead, unless, of course, someone else sent one in that ties in better. And the question is, what is the best thing and the worst thing about your time in the military? And then he says, I'll probably have to watch the podcast instead of the live stream, as always, for your Saturday show. Have a blessed weekend and Independence Day. Thanks. And again, that's from WGrow508. All right. So what is the best thing and the worst thing about my time in the military? Well, my time in the military was actually fairly short. I served from 1990 to 1994. And I would have to say, as far as the best thing about the military is it took a young man who had no direction, who basically wasn't really sure what he wanted to do and was planning on going through life being just to go through life, and turned that man into something more of a driven individual. And as far as, whether or not I would join again today, just to expand upon this, I probably wouldn't, even if I could, age-wise and health-wise, I probably wouldn't. And I've even told my son that he needs to make his own decision as to whether or not he would want to join the military. And he's decided that he doesn't. He flirted with it for a little bit, but he's decided that he hasn't. What's the worst thing about my time in the military? I would have to say knowing what the military is going through now and what I went through and understanding the history of it. Having that experience was a great thing, but also understanding that having that experience and knowing that that's not the same military that should be there today is probably, I almost feel like I shouldn't have that experience to draw upon, but at the same time, it's kind of a love-hate relationship, I guess, in the best sense of the word. Because my time when I was in, obviously I was in during like the Bill Clinton time frame, or maybe it was George W. Bush time frame. Sorry. But anyway, the point being is that, the worst thing about my time in the military was the fact that I actually was even aware what the military was supposed to do. And what it's doing now, it makes me really sad to see, like, articles have come out here recently where they are actually lowering the education requirements in order to join up because they have to try and make their quotas. And, to be completely honest with you, I think that a lot of the policies of this administration are what's driving down the requirements. There's a lot of people, 40,000 individuals, National Guard individuals are possibly going to get mustered out because of the fact that they won't take the vaccine. And I think that is a travesty. You've got 40,000 well-trained individuals who are going to be kicked out of the reserves, essentially, just because they have made a conscious medical decision to not be a lab rat for something that is, by all intents and purposes, and the articles coming out, being questioned even now. You have the whole idea of CRT being taught, especially at places like West Point. And honestly, when I went in, you didn't have any skin color. Your color was green. There was no racism in the military. And I had white drill instructors. I had black drill instructors. I had I had a Puerto Rican drill instructor when I was in basic. When I hit my permanent duty station, I had black and white sergeants. None of it mattered. And so this whole concept, or this whole idea of even having any racism is foreign to me personally, because of that experience during my formative adulthood, the beginning of my adulthood, which essentially was that you're all green. Everybody's green. We're all the same color. We're all there to fight alongside one another, ultimately, if the call comes in. And, learning to get along with people. I mean, yes, I didn't get along with everybody, and not everybody got along with me. But the fact of the matter is that it wasn't because of something that we had no control over. And that's the part that I actually feel really bad, that I would have to say what was worse about my time in the military. Now, I can tell you one of the things that I really didn't like about the military is the fact that they had specific requirements for things like time and grade and time and service. It wasn't performance-based necessarily for you to get promoted. So you had to hit certain markers in order to be able to move up the chain, at least in the Army at the time. So that kind of vexed me. But as far as the worst thing about my time in the military was just the fact that I understand, I took a look, I see, I've been there, and I was a part of the military that I would say toward the very end that was starting to phase out from like my stepfather's military and turn into more of a intelligent military, a strong military, from the fact that they started to recognize people with intelligence and high IQs and that kind of stuff. And not so much just because somebody coming off the street and throw them into the infantry or whatever. But now it's starting to be worse than that. And so I would have to say just having the experience in both senses was both the best thing and the worst thing. Hopefully that answered your question there from WGrow508. And that brings us to the end of the program. Do me a favor, if you like what I'm doing here, if you like what the show brings, please feel free to come back, but also do me a favor and subscribe. I prefer Rumble, not YouTube, because Rumble is the free speech alternative to YouTube. You can also follow me on social media. And I have a Locals account, and I'm starting to think that maybe I might do some daily 3-minute videos or something like that on it. And I will post them such that subscribers can see them, but it won't be behind the paywall as far as that goes, at least for now. Support the program by, picking up the Leather Constitution and any other books, actually, at theamericanview.com. Sorry, go to iotc.whiskeymusings.online, iotc.whiskeymusings.online, and you can pick up some awesome books like this one here, How to Read the Constitution in 30 Days. This one here, which talks about the county sheriff being America's last hope, the constitutional sheriff. And also this thick book here, Constitution Study, obviously. So take a look at what they have and support the show if you go to iotc.whiskeymusings.online. Have a fabulous Independence Day. I hope everyone is safe. If you're lighting off fireworks, please be careful. I would hate to find out that somebody blew off a finger or a hand or any other kind of body part or got hurt in any way. And also make sure that you have all your barbecues and celebrate the fact that America is the greatest nation to ever grace this planet, and that we are the greatest nation in spite of and because of our faults. Have a wonderful Independence Day weekend, and we'll see you Wednesday on the next Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody. Oop. I lost my cursor for a second. Good night, everybody.